In the first 9 courses, we learnt both theory and practical skills to introduce you to the skills in Leathercraft. In this course, we're going to take all those skills and combine them together into a project. In this course, I'll be teaching you how to make the Minimalist Wallet. Without further ado, let's begin this course. We have our patterns here, and we're going to be tracing out 2 of these and 2 of these on this and cutting them out. And it's up to you which way you want to go, if you want to trace around this way or trace around this way. I'm going to be tracing around this way. Get your awl and trace around these patterns. And then we can just cut out these patterns. Now that we have the pieces cut out, if you've made any mistakes on the pieces, for example with the round awl, and you've just simply marked inside of the piece, that's completely fine. As long as it's inside the 4mm trim allowance, that will be fine. If it is at the top on either side, what you can do is simply just flip the piece upside down and then just use the other side if you made a mistake down here. The next thing I'm going to be doing is using an edge creaser to crease the top of the pockets of the wallet. And I'll be using the 1.5mm edge creaser. If you're not going to be edge creasing, that's completely fine. Just make sure that these are 80 by 79, that you don't have the 80 this way and the 79 this way. And what I'll do is just crease these edges. The next thing I'm going to be doing is beveling these leather edges. And you can see with this edge beveler, it actually hits the cutting mat before it touches the leather edge. And that's just the design of this particular edge beveler. It's fine on thicker leather, but when it comes to more thinner leather like this, you can see that the design of how it is, the metal here hits the cutting mat first before the blade does. And there is the other design that I have. This is personal preference, of course. There's nothing wrong with this edge beveler. There's just this particular edge beveler, it just hits the cutting mat first. Now there is actually a way around this. To get around this, what we're going to do is actually use the edge of the cutting mat to help to bevel the leather edge. What I'm going to do is just bring the leather edge to the edge of the cutting mat. And pretty much what's going to happen is the cutting mat is just going to be adding extra thickness to the leather so that the edge beveler can bevel the leather edge. When I bevel thin leather like this, I like to bevel the flesh side first and then the grain side. The reason is that if we bevel the grain side first, I find that you get a really nice bevel. However, when you flip it over to bevel the flesh side, it can start to upset the grain side bevel. And I'm not sure as to why that is. I think it's just because you bevel this side, and then because there is not much of an edge left on this side, and because it's much more easier to bevel on this side here, when you go to bevel on this side, because there is not much of an edge on this side here, and because you have to apply a bit more pressure to bevel the flesh side, it tends just to upset the grain side. So for that reason, I like to bevel the flesh side first and then the grain side. So what we're going to do is just place the leather on the edge of the cutting mat. And simply just get your edge beveler and just bevel. And as you can see, you have to apply a bit more pressure on the flesh side, but then when you flip it over and you go to bevel the grain side, it's much more easier. And as you can see, you get a nice bevel on the grain side. If you are using too thin of a leather and you can't use an edge beveler, what you can do is just get some sandpaper and just use some sandpaper to bevel the leather edge. Once that's finished, what we're going to do is recrease these leather edges. What we're doing is just redefining this edge crease line. What we're going to do now is stain the top of these leather edges and burnish them. And I'll be using dark brown edge stain. I'm going to stain this on an angle like this so that the edge stain doesn't flow back onto the leather. And once you've done that, simply get your wooden slicker and because it's a thin piece, it won't take too long. If you need to go over it again, if you've missed any spots, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to do that to the rest of the 3 pieces. Next thing to do is to simply get some token oil and burnish the leather edges. Then get your canvas. Once you've done that to all 4 pieces, it's up to you whether you want to token oil them again. But for me, I'm just going to leave them how they are. What I'm going to do is just get some Columbus wax and just rub it on. Just make sure as well that if you have any dye on your fingers or whatever, just try not to touch the leather surface because you don't want to be getting that dye onto the leather surface. As you can see, we have some nice edges. Right there. What I'm going to do is just do a slight tap and then a hit. As you can see, we haven't gone through on the opposite side. And you can reuse this piece. If there gets too many stamp marks on this piece here, just throw it out. But these little scrap pieces will be fine to use. The next thing to do is to scratch up the surfaces on these 2 pieces. To scratch up the surface of the leather, you have 2 options, or there's multiple options, but the 2 options I'm going to be using is the roundel and the scuffing tool. So I'll use the roundel, which is sufficient to use for one, and then I'll use the scuffing tool for the other. All we're going to do is just start scratching the leather. Then when you get to the top here, you can just angle it like this so you don't go over that line. As you can see, these are the differences between the two. The next thing to do is apply contact adhesive to both of these and also both front pockets. The spatula, you can actually remove any excess because we do just need a thin layer. Just use a paper towel to clean that spatula. And once the adhesive has dried, so not pressing down completely, just having it set slightly, and then place it down. And then you should have two pieces that have been bonded together. And now what we're going to do is apply adhesive to the opposite side. Once these have dried, what we're going to do is we'll pick these up. And what we're going to do is just simply go corner to corner at this top. Just have it set in one spot, and then you can just move this one over. Make sure this one is in the corner. And then once you're happy with that, press them together, applying a bit more pressure. And then what you can do then, what you can do is just let these fall together. And then just simply apply pressure. And now these have been bonded together. The next thing I'm going to be doing is the trim allowance. And I'll be using two rulers for this. We're going to focus on this piece here. So 4mm at the top, and then focus on this piece here, down here. 4mm, and we'll just simply cut through the pocket first using a score mark, and then we can start at the top and work our way down. As you can see, we have a nice flush edge. Now we're going to do this side here. As you can see, the piece there lines up well there. And as you can see, the piece there is slightly in from the front pocket piece that is slightly hanging over the edge. And that's completely fine. We're going to focus on this piece here, not the top piece there. Now we'll do the final side here. After the trim allowance, what we're going to do is use a heated edge crease to crease these edges. And we're going to be creasing both sides. And it is optional whether you want to heat the creaser or not. If you're using a wing divider, what you can do is set it to 3mm, trace around it, and just do that to one side. You can do that to the opposite side if you want to see if the stitch holes have come out accurately, but that's completely up to you. You're more than welcome to go back over them. Now what we're going to do is get our pricking irons, and we're going to be going through this leather. And we're going to go 4 times the length of the leather. 3, 4. And we'll do that for this side here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then for the width, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll have some excess for the end of the stitch. And I like to have about this much, and we'll have about this much. 1, 2, and then for the threading of the needles, we'll have about this much. Is just clip the thread, and now we have our length of thread. And then clip, and then do that to the opposite side. And then push those threads back into the center of the stitch hole. Cut through. And then cut down. And if you've gone on an angle, it's quite easy to go on an angle, so you just go back over it. Then go to the top, and we're just going to remove a little bit, but we're not going to go too much of an angle here. We're going to just rotate it a bit this way and just remove that edge, because we don't want to get too close to the binding over stitch. So just change the angle slightly. As you can see, we've just removed a slight edge here and a slight edge at the top. What I'm now going to do is burnish these leather edges. For this particular project, I'm going to be aiming for a nice shine, a high shine on these leather edges. So I'm going to be sanding these leather edges. It's completely up to you whether you want to sand the leather edges, if you want to just completely skip that stage. Me personally, I tend to not really worry about a high shine on leather edges, but for this project, I'm just aiming for a high shine, so I'm going to be sanding the leather edges. And the sandpaper I'm going to be using is 600 grit sandpaper. Now once you've finished your sanding, just get it as smooth as you want it. If you have any excess water on the edge, that's completely fine. It'll dry and be fine. What we're going to do now is we're going to get the edge beveler and then bevel these leather edges. What we're going to do is simply just bevel these leather edges all the way around on both sides. What we're going to do now is crease these other edges with a heated edge creaser. I'm going to stain on an angle. And we'll just do one edge at a time so that we're not trying to juggle how to hold the wallet as we are burnishing. You're more than welcome to go back over it if you don't think it's stained enough. Again, we're going to just do one at a time. What we'll do first is we'll just remove the excess on the edge, because we don't want the excess to go over the edge too much, because then it will start to stain the leather. And then you can see the token oil. And you can leave the edge like this if you like, you don't have to go to the next step. Just to remove that excess, you can just use a paper towel. And to finish the leather edges, I'm going to be using Columbus wax. It's completely up to you if you want to leave the edges how they are, or you can use beeswax to finish the leather edges, or you can use another wax. But I'm going to be using Columbus wax. And what I'm going to do is just apply it over the edges and burnish the Columbus wax. And these are the leather edges. It's completely up to you how shiny you want to make them, or if you want to not have them stained at all. It's completely up to you. What I'm going to do now is get the bone folder and open up these pockets. You can use scissors, but just be careful that you don't scratch the leather. And as you can see, we have a nice minimalist wallet. That's it for this course. If you have any questions, feel free to get in contact with me through email or social media. Be sure to enjoy your leather crafting.